Hello. Hello, hello. How is everyone? First of all, happy Saturday, 5th of July. Mic check, mic check, mic check. Happy. That's good. Happy. Let's dive straight into Bitcoin, because what is going on? Are we having a fake out? Or are we going to the moon? That is the question that I've had in the last couple of days. Are we going to make a new all-time high? Or are we going to bounce back? Let's dive straight into the 3 days. Just like always, we are in the uptrend still. Let's hide these. Come on. Rest. That's fine. We're still in the uptrend. We had the higher highs, higher lows, and the momentum lowering. Now we are in a falling wedge. Oh fuck. So, my bad, guys. We are still in the uptrend here. Higher highs, higher lows. At the top we are still in a downtrend in this part, because we are currently in a falling wedge pattern from the top, and these all two connected on the dailies, at least, as you can see. And we have been breaking out of the trend line here. We have been breaking out of the trend line. Just checking if the stuff is good in here. Okay, there we go. So we had a breakout of the trend that we were having. And what can we see based on this? Obviously, to continue the trend, so to continue the downtrend, we had to make a lower high. In this case, we had to make sure that we would stay below this high. Okay? If we would push through and made a higher high, we would be breaking out of this trend. Did we break out of this trend now? No, we haven't yet. And why is that? That's pretty simple. We are only going to break out of a trend if we have made the higher high. So the important line in here is still intact, which means that this is most likely a fake out. Yes, a wick has been coming through, but on the daily close we have closed below, and it could maybe go for another 2 or 3 days up, because from the highs and lows on the daily, so let's grab this one here and make it a bit better. There we go. From this period of time, if we dive into the hourly now, we have been also forming some sort of a rising wedge. Okay, so we are in a falling wedge on the bigger picture, and zoomed in we are on a rising wedge, which means that the possible outcome of this would be downwards. Okay, this will be broken, so this will not be correct. If we push up and make the higher high as we said, and you know, make the higher high on the daily. Okay. What can we see as well? So if we dive in, we see a triple top, also known as the head and shoulders. Okay. The shampoo head and shoulders, just like this. Okay. Which is a reversal pattern, which means that price will go down. We saw that here happening on Friday in fact. And with market open, it has been confirmed and it dumped to the ground. Where did it dump to? To a 1 hour gap. The 1 hour gap has been closed. What is important here? Did we made a lower low? We have not. So this was important. We didn't make the lower low. Which means that basically we are still uptrending. Okay. And if we zoom in even further, we could have been seeing a 15-minute gap. So this 15-minute gap, if we drew the line in there, we call it 15-minute, then you see that it was a perfect moment to hit it, take the long for continuation up. Because the trend is your friend in this case, okay? So if the trend is in a uptrend, this is the moment where it's your friend. Yes, you need to be careful that it's not going to break through. But if it's nicely closing above, you can enter and go long. Okay? So hourly, Bitcoin is still in an uptrend. Daily, Bitcoin is still in a downtrend. Unless we make the higher high. This is simple market structure. I'm going to dive into it a bit later in the stream. This is just Bitcoin relative. Okay. Which means that what we are looking for overall is for Bitcoin to dump, make the low over here, get a retest, continuation down. Where will it go down to? This is a 1 hour gap, which has been hit and closed on the hourly. But as you can see, so if we're going to, okay. So if we dive into the 1 hour and we are going back to where it came, you can see over here, it had a nice reversal based on a double top where you have your neckline, because a double bottom has a neckline, which means that whenever you have a double bottom, price breaks out, gets a retest on the neckline, continuation up. It's basically how the double bottom works. I do have Discord. Discord is in the description down below. And it's all for free. And I'm sharing TAs for free. We have a nice community that works together, trades together. And we are just growing up, basically. And if you're new to crypto, then this is the place to be. This is the place to also learn. And that kind of stuff. So yes, the link is down in the description below. If it doesn't work, please let me know. But yeah, we are still working on what's going on here, because right now, diving into the Bitcoin closer, we're seeing that it's trying to break. It's trying to, you know, push through. However, it's not making the higher highs right now. Hey, babe. Okay, so if we are going to dive a bit further into this, let's just remove this for now. We had this high, we had a high, we had a low, a higher low, and also another higher low based on this. However, we haven't yet made a higher high in here, which means that we are seeing multiple trend directions happening. Okay, we have the low in here, we have the high in here, and we have a low in here. Then we have a change of character. We get our high and our low. Now we are on an uptrend. We have another high, another low. We are still in an uptrend. Now we want a higher high in here to continue this uptrend. If it's not going to make that higher high, let's say it's going to come over here, we are making a lower high, which is an indication. Our confirmation of this trend, changing again, will be to create a lower low now. And then we have a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. And in here, you basically have a downtrend, a uptrend, and a downtrend. It can go very quick, okay? This is how quick all of these things basically go. And sometimes you can be ahead of it. In this case, I will speak about that in a minute. But yeah, this is Bitcoin. I think you are logging. I am, yes. I was in his Discord and I noticed that he has a nice community. However, that stuff is based on scalping and what's it called? Scalping and levels. And I'm basically very into the market structure and gaps. And in the last couple of streams, we have been correct for so many times. So it's working, and that's the part that I really like in here. And if you do as well, feel free to join us. Plus it's all for free, so why not? Okay, so right now we have a couple open gaps. We have a gap on the top in here, and we have the gap on the bottom in here, which basically means that if we are going to break through the purple line in here, if we're going to break through the purple line close below that important, then for, let's say, Monday or Tuesday, we need to make a close below here. And if it's going to break this trend line, most likely, it will be most likely that we are going to make a close below. Okay? Most likely. I'm going to dive into a couple altcoins. In fact, Ethereum first. What have we got on Ethereum? So this is what we were looking for on Bitcoin. Okay? We have the important line in here, which basically is that break of structure or a change of character moment. Because right now we had to make a higher high. That was our job. The job from this push was to make a higher high and close above the high. Okay? You're welcome. If you have any coins that that you want to be looked at, feel free to ask in the chat and I'll dive into it. Okay, where is it? There we go. So right now we wanted a couple things. From here we had the low and we had a bounce on the level, and we basically wanted it to retest. Where is it? We wanted to retest this gap for continuation down, but because we have been broken through, the short is not correct at the moment. And why? Simply market structure. Okay, we had a up and we had a big down. Right now we are in this uptrend still. We made a higher high, we made a higher high, we made a higher high. My TA says that I want a retest on the bottom on Ethereum. Let me let me remove these real quick because all right. This was the TA that we had before, where we had a big push of 52%, and now we are in a very big range happening in here. For continuation, like I truly believe that Ethereum can go up to 4K. But right now we need to either retest or just push through. We are going sideways for way too long at the moment, and yes, we are trying to decide which way we're going to. However, 9 out of the 10 times, whenever we have a break out of a trend line like this, where we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 touches, we breaking out of it. I wish to see a nice retest with a confirmation that we're, you know, able to go long, and then push up, because we have been making the higher highs based on this. And now we just need to retest, because we made the higher high. Now we need a higher low, okay? Where it's very important that we close above this box of range. This is very important. Very important. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. We are trying to become bigger with the community, and basically everything is for free on our Discord. The only thing that we offer is a course where you can basically learn all of it and you know, become a trader as well. So appreciate the help. And all of it's for free, so people would like to see that. What we have going on in here is basically we have the two lows, and we're just going to drag a trend line to it, just like with Bitcoin. And also we're gonna just take the tops, because this is also saying that we are still uptrending unless we break this trend line here. We need to break this trend line, close below, retest, continuation down. If we want to see Ethereum go down, we basically need to push through down here and get a retest on the gap which is creating here. And then we need to make that new lower low based on this one. Okay, so this important line can be removed. It's now important for us to push through this and make a lower low. And what is also important, this is the new high. Oh, this is the new high, which means that this one is important now as well. Because if we are failing to break, we will most likely try and make a higher high based on there. Okay, so I'm bearish on Ethereum still, and I'm same as Bitcoin, because I want Bitcoin to be retesting the lows, just like I've been basically saying for over a while now. Because over here, if we are going to grab the gaps, there we go. I need to fix all of the layouts basically. It's a bit of a mess now. But based on Bitcoin zoomed out, we need a new lower high. We need a new higher low. So I would like to see another retest on the bottom, which means a retest happening on, let's say, 54 point, yeah, well, let's say 55k. Okay, that's basically what I would like to see happening before Bitcoin can basically push through a new all-time high. And this is what I've been saying from over here on the double top already. Well, I've started to stream over here, and that was already where I wanted this to be happening. But still. Okay. Let me drag this down real quick. There we go. Much better. Okay. So yeah, there was Ethereum and Bitcoin. So this is basically what we are looking for. We are still bearish for now on Ethereum, and I have been for the whole time because I really want to see this happening. Okay, I really need to see a retest on 1800, 2000, something there. Nah, just here. You know, I really need that retest happening there. I was very interested in Grass, which is a new coin I was interested in, where I have been making a mistake. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I've made the mistake because we had a... Let's remove this mess first, okay? Let's remove this mess first. In fact, let's get rid of all of it. Sometimes you have to lose as well. And I'm going to explain why I've lost. Sup, Virtus? So, on Grass, I have been very bullish because we had 3 touch points on the highs over here. So let's fix that. And I basically wanted, like, we have a high, lower high, and eventually we need, you know, more lower highs until we break through. But on Grass, we had this low. Then we were in a small uptrend, which means that we were having this pattern basically, okay? Which is, if I'm correct, a symmetrical triangle, which basically could go both ways, okay? But that's with all trend lines. If you have an upward trend line here over here, where you have higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, then eventually, are we going to break through, yes or no? Or are we going to have that rebounds up? We have made and broke this trend line. And I was looking at this coin from over here. So let's say from over here, where we regained basically, and yeah, this is what it was creating. We were in this scenario where we saw a double bottom happening, okay? So the trend line was basically set from this point to this point, and I went long over here for a potential of the price going back towards here, towards this gap, and make that higher, that lower high. Well, turns out I was wrong, so I got stopped out. And I've made a mistake. There we go. So I got stopped out. And then I thought, you know, maybe we're going to create that double... I mean, the reverse head and shoulders here. Okay. Very possible in this case. You know, we have a nice shoulder and a head. But what I was mistaking is this. So this is currently what's been happening. Based on market structure, we should have still been bearish. And why is that? We have this low. We have our high. Okay. Eventually, you can call this a higher low, but then you have a lower high, which means that you are again in a symmetrical triangle. But if you zoom out a bit more, you see that we have been creating a new lower low, and we haven't made that higher high yet. Okay, so right now we are still downtrending, which means that if we're going to look on the left, we have a 1 day gap over here. As you can see, a 1 day gap. This we need to call a 1 day gap as well. This we can keep, because for us it's important now to, so this is important for us. Are we going to make a higher low, or are we going to make a lower low? Okay, so are we going to do this, or are we going to do this? And if we are doing this part, then from where are we going to see a reaction? Okay, because this is possible where we can have a retrace, and then it's our job again to make a higher high based on this. Then, only then, we have a break of structure. I mean, we have a change of character. Because right now we are still downtrending. Still downtrending. Okay? So, I have made a mistake indeed. Sometimes you have to make mistakes. Sometimes you have to lose. And sometimes you just need to start a live stream and look over it again and just confirm yourself. So, zooming in on this coin, yes, I think this coin has potential. So, I think for holding this this coin is a very potential way on doing it. But right now, we need to have confirmation on continuing up. Yeah, here we have the 1 day gap. Then we have an hourly gap, an hourly gap, and an hourly gap. But there's no much more data. And with Bitcoin, we have many more years of data, which means that we can, you know, be prepared for a bit more. Altcoins are just different. So yeah, that's grass. We need a confirmation on going long here. Right now, if you're thinking on getting in a coin like something like this, where it made a high and it made a low, right now you see we're in the middle of it. Literally don't enter any long, any short. Trading is waiting. If you're going long in here, price will just dump down. And if you're going short, price will go up. Trust me. You will be sweating. So don't do it. Now this is a coin I've been looking at since last week. And Tom, if you're watching, thanks for giving me this coin. Thanks for calling it in the live stream last time. Because this coin is this coin has some sure potentials, guys. And I'll just remove the alarms real quick. We are having this trend line on the daily, correct? Right? Where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost 7 touch points now. Where this is our market structure, okay? We have made a higher high. You have made a higher high. Well, we have the low, a higher low. And right now, right now we have been failing to make a higher high again. And we also made a all-time high here, just like Bitcoin did in June. Okay, so we have been testing this 1 day gap twice now, and it didn't make a higher high that time. Okay, you see over here, if we are going to dive a bit deeper into the hourly, let's say, this is the 1 day gap that I've been talking about. And the amount of, let's correct this real quick. The amount of like the difference here is so accurate basically on the 1 day gap, which is just crazy basically. We have been making like the hourly, we are uptrending. Like, don't get me wrong, we are uptrending, higher high, and right now we have made a even high. Okay, so we didn't made a higher high based on this orange line. Okay, so I'm just grabbing these two tops basically. We haven't made a higher high, otherwise it would be somewhere over here or over here. Okay, it didn't, which means that the momentum right now is pushing down basically. And right now what has been happening, and this was just an hour ago, holy crap, we took this short to the bottom where we have been touching the neckline, and then over here we saw a reversal coming up, so we left the trade somewhere over here. Okay, we could have entered the long, however sometimes you just need to take a rest. But if you were going long in here, it would have been pretty simple. Just long it for a potential higher high, but most likely take a profit on the gap, this gap, you see? It didn't. I've been keeping an eye on the high TA for the TA. Yeah, so this trend line has been broken as well, so we can remove this real quick. This gap, so 1 hour gap, we can move it to the side over there. And right now we need to see what's been happening and why it has been reversing down. Okay, so if we're just going to grab that wick on the green wick on the left, and the top in here, we'll dive to the left side here. Some touch points. Alright, so between these two lines, we have a strong resistance level. Okay, which means this is why we reversed, where we have been creating that double top, breakout to the bottom, and over here we see a double bottom, which means that this black line is also the neck, this black line is also the neckline. So this could be a this could be a potential long in order to fill this gap on the top. This is possible, don't get me wrong. However, trade with the trend, and right now we are getting indications. We are getting warnings of this coin reversing to the bottom. Okay, because our big indication already has been made that we have the indication of not creating a higher high. We need our indication and our confirmation. Indication is the higher high that's not being created, so we have been making a lower high. The confirmation would be to make a lower low. So if we had the higher high, if you have the indication and the confirmation, when are we going to enter this coin to be exact? Okay, so when are we going to short it? That's pretty simple. Somewhere over here. And why somewhere over there? Simple. If we are, and I'll just get into the hour, the daily, because that's a bit easier to draw down. If we are going to create a lower low, because this is what we need to do, okay? We need to close below here. The indication, well, we have two indications now. The first indication is that we have been creating a lower high. The second indication would be to break this trend line, okay? So the first thing we need to do is to break this important and close below. I prefer to close below this one here because that's more on this trend based, okay? So basically I want a close over here, and then with this trend line being broken, and I'm just getting an alarm on JASMY, Dave, if you're watching, or Virtus. I'll dive into JASMY in a second. So if we are breaking out and we have this gap over here now, then this is the moment to enter the short for continuation down. Okay? That's very simple how market structure works basically. We have a change of character where we are creating a lower low instead of a higher low. We have been creating a new lower high, which means that we have our indication, confirmation, enter your trade. Okay? This is what we need to get from high basically. And right now we are still questioning, are we going to break the trend line now? Let's dive into JASMY because my alarm just went off. Oof. Same situation here. I'm just zooming out real quick. We have this trend line. We broke it. We had a retest already on this closed. Doing that retest, we have been creating a new trend line. Trend line has been broken again, where we have been creating a higher high over here based on this one. Which means that if I'm going to draw it out, we have a low, the high, the low, and the high. Hold on. It's not yet the perfect one. Perhaps we need to dive into this with the hourly. Yeah, sorry, my bad guys. See what's been happening here? See, like, it's not always looking like the best, but we have this high, we have this high, we have this high. We have the low, lower low, lower low, lower low. And now that taking this high and this high in total, we have been making a higher high based on this. So this is our indication. Our confirmation would be, so the confirmation would be to make a higher low now. Okay, so this is the confirmation that we need. So we have the high, the low, then we need to close this gap. We'll most likely get a retest, continuation up. Okay, so then it's important for us, let's remove these, and this, and this. I have slow mode on, I'm gonna have to change that. Slow-mo basically means that if you're typing it, I'm seeing it a bit later. I need to change that. But yeah, for JASMY, I have one more alert in here. And I think I already have a pre-order set down here. Because this is basically the important part. Where we need to retest the gap. And we need to make sure that we close above the low. Okay. That's very important. No wins. Okay. So yeah, this is JASMY. JASMY has a big potential, and speaking on it with like a weekly time frame, where this is more zoomed out. Okay, big zoomed out. We had a break, retest, Now we need another break, because now we need to make a higher high, continuation up. Even though this is all red, this is why we basically zoom in, because there's a lot of stuff happening in here in between. So we're not going to be seeing it in the weekly. But if we zoom in, we will see multiple points where price will be touching. However, let's say in, I think by the end of this year, this has a potential on coming towards here. I think, yeah, I think that will be happening. Because we have this trend line, we have a breakout, retest, and then 9 out of the 10 times it will go towards somewhere over here or to the beginning of that trend. So let's call it in between. This is very potential here, where you could get a 265% profit without even using without even using any leverage. Okay. Alright, if you guys have some coins, just drop them into the Discord, and not in the Discord, I mean in the chat, and I'll go over it. Until then, I have so many coins. Fart coin. So Fart coin has been so lovely. We had 2 beautiful short setups. And now we're uptrending again. Okay. Yes, we have this trend line down. So yes, we are in a downtrend. Don't get me wrong. Okay. So we are downtrending, which means that this needs to be here. However, this is based on the trend line, which has been touched. I prefer to have Fart coin a bit lower. I mean, sorry, a bit higher, because I basically want this to be happening until it touches our point in here. Okay. Because as you can see over here now as well, we had this gap, got filled with a wick. I prefer this gap to be filled with a wick and then down, just like the other two. Here we have a nice big wick, which is potentially a a gap over here on the hourly. Shall we just test it out? Let's test it out. Black line. Let's dive into the hourly. All the way to the left, if we can. Then I would say that this would have been a 1 hour gap, and this a level. So if we move to the right, we can see the 1 hour gap is the big line in here, and then it had that rebound on that level. But then on the 1 hour gap as well, we had this touch point. Okay, interesting. Did you guys know, by the way, that if you double press this, it will just reset your chart instead of being something like this? Just double click on the side and you're back to where you were. But yeah, we had this trend line break where we have had the uptrend, beautiful touch points. Then we had our indication, confirmation, continuation down. Yeah, we might have just missed this short. We might. If you are in the short, okay, if you are in this short, and I'm just going to be diving into the 1 hour for this, no, the 1 day still. We have, what's this? this gap open, and over here we have a gap. You have two important things in here. We either need to close above in here, like it's doing now, for continuation up. And if we are not, so if we're not closing above in here, it basically means that we need to close below here. Okay, and that's a big step for Fartcoin. It's a big step, because if you want to, not trend line, important line. Because if you want to drop down again, what we need is our indication. Okay, this is uptrending. Low, higher low, higher low, high, higher high, higher high. We need to see a lower low happening, continued by a lower high for continuation down to most likely over here or further down. Okay, this is basic market structure, because it has the potential, like if it's closing over here today, we could see a push through over here for a potential downward trend line continued. However, if we are pushing through, closing above with the trend line, we need to be looking very closely that we don't make the higher high. Okay, with all of these things, we basically have to wait. All right, I'm just going to be diving in, since there's no TA on the request. If you do have a TA on request, feel free to just drop that in Discord or in the chat still. But I will just go over market, like basic structure, like basic trend lines and how it basically works. Because I noticed that there's still a bunch of questions unanswered, which I would like to discuss. So I'm going to draw. I'm going to try and draw a nice uptrend. Okay. And yes, I will be correcting all of the points. Meep. Meep. All right. So I'm going to be talking about a couple things. I'm going to be talking about break of structure. Okay, going to save as break of structure, and I'm going to talk about change of character. Save as change of character. Whenever we are in a uptrend or a downtrend, each of the tops and the bottoms have a mission. Okay, just simple strategies here, simple talking. The job for this guy is to push below here. However, it failed. Okay, it failed, which means that the job on this guy is to push through this guy. Okay, it has to push through and make a higher moment, so a higher high than this guy. If it does, we call it break of structure. Okay, which means that this is also a break of structure. means that this is also a break of structure. Okay. We call this gaps because these are points that are still open now, which means that we are going to put a line there, a line there, and the line here. Okay. If we want to see a trend changing, we need, let's call this red. Red, dark red, red. Okay. We need to see this happening. Why? Right now we have filled and closed below. So normally this will be the way. Okay. Where this gap has been filled and closed below, which means this is now going to be removed. And that bottom part is now our change of character, because we are not like the job that this guy had was to break this guy, and this time it worked. This time this guy is very strong. Okay, because it did that, we have a change of character. We call it indication, confirmation. The indication here is that this guy has a new job, is to push through, make a higher high. It didn't work, so we have our high here. Okay, which means that we have this gap open and this gap open. The job on this guy is just like the other bottoms. Now it's reversed. Okay, so now we have this top. The job for this guy is to make a lower low. Okay, the job is to make a lower low. And let's correct this real quick. Oh, come on. There we go. Because normally it will be pushing up quite fast and just failing to make that higher high. Okay, so let's just confirm these, fill them nicely. Come on, there we go. This is basically how the structure works. Okay, so this we call a breaker structure again. This we call a breaker structure again. This we can be removed. And then based on this, because this was a gap that has been open, has now been closed. Which means that if you are trying to trade against the trend line, against this trend line, there we go. And this is normally a bit higher than, let's drag this through and fix these. See, my drawing skills are just so insane good. Oh, there we go. So over here we have two trend lines now. Because this trend line has been broken, over here we had basically two confirmations. Okay, so this trend line has been broken. Hey, keep your heads up, we might make a lower low. So if you are long in here, close it, because we have the indication, we got a warning signal that we might be closing below the low. Okay, so we create a lower low. So if you're in a short here, which is basically maybe already set up from a gap on the left, you could basically be happy and stay in that short. Because we broke this trend line, we made our lower low, we need to retest and make a lower high. This mostly happens on a gap zoomed in, or it will just retest the high, close this gap, and then continuation down. Okay, this is possible. Just in this case with the trend line, I'll keep it like this. To continue down, we need to keep breaking those break of structures. Okay, we need to keep making lower lows, lower highs, until we eventually break that trend line again to make a higher high and then a higher low and then go up like this again. It's very simple, very basic. Okay, if you have questions on this, please let me know, because I'm trying to explain it the best to you. This is how market structure works, where you can define, like where you can find a uptrend and see when it's going to create a downtrend. Now I want to discuss one more thing, which is currently happening with Bitcoin on the reversal part then. Where we have gaps open at the bottom. Okay, we still have gaps open at the bottom, these 3 gaps. We had a good push through this week. But this is the problem. We haven't made a lower low. However, we did break this trend line. Okay. If it doesn't make the lower low happening right now, this price could potentially push up further. Okay, which means that this trend line is going to continue up. This is what we call a fake out. It is faking out. It is trying to fake a breakout. Like, it's going to tell you, like, I'm going to make a lower low, and it's just going to end today with psych, I'm not going to, I'm going up. Which means that if people are going short in here, they see like, oh, yeah, we're going to make a lower low. You know, we going to push the price over to here, and we enter the short on the breakout of this trend, and we are not paying attention, and it's not making that lower low, basically means that you're going to get stopped out. Okay, so if you are a trend line breakout trader, wow, this is what you need to be looking at. Okay, you need to make sure it's going to make that reversal pattern, not the pattern, the reversal indication, because the indication is to make our first lower low, and then so this is what you want if you are going short, and then you need your confirmation, which is basically the lower high, and then continuation down. And this has been happening with Bitcoin. I am going to dive into it real quick. Not real quick. I'm going to dive into it a bit deeper. Let's remove all of the drawings. Like, I'm not a big nice painter. So, you know what? I'm just going to drive this all the way into the rest, height and height. I want the clean thing over here. We have our trend line, which is this. Come on. Template trend line, okay? And we also have another trend line like so. Okay. Because we have this low and this low, we are downtrending. Because we have this low and this low, we are downtrending. And this low, by the way. Now that we have been breaking through this trend line, okay, so let's zoom out a very tiny bit. This is the pattern that we were having. And basically this needs to continue until we break above, okay? Because this pattern, the falling wedge, has like an 80% chance of breaking out to the upside. Nice cup, by the way. But it has been breaking through the trend line that we had from the two tops, okay? Where it was important for us that if you're going to break, you need to break this important line, okay? Because if it does, like if it does break through, this important line becomes a change of character, which means that from here we are going to make a higher high, get a retest, make sure that we get a higher low for continuation up, okay? But because this didn't happen, so this line is still important for us, it didn't close above the important line, which basically means that this has the potential of continuating down, okay? This is very important for people to understand. This is currently faking everybody out. Zooming in, this is why it has been faking everybody out. Here we have the reversal pattern, the head and shoulders. And if you are going to drag the low to this high, this is currently important to break, because we are having the low, higher low, higher low. We have the high, higher high, higher high. Okay. If we are going to break this trend line here, the orange trend line, our job is to make a lower low based on this, which means that this is now important as well. Okay. So the important line, this is the daily important line. On the hourly also is, yeah, it's also for the 1 hour. So it needs to do this today or tomorrow or this week or that. And both jobs, like both jobs, are to make a higher high or to make a lower high. So right now as well, we are in the middle, which means wait. If you don't wait, you're too late. Well, actually not, because you have to wait. This is what we need to do with Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin is going to do any of these things, most likely altcoins will be going that way as well. Okay. Is there any question on this scenario? Any? I am whoa. I'm gonna have to clean this up a bit, because these are way too much. This can be gone. And this can be gone. AVAX. I had a message about AVAX. Alright, we're gonna time how fast I can do one coin. AVAX. We're gonna highlight it. We're gonna be looking at it. Totally new coin, okay? What do we see? With the high, we have the lower high, we have a lower high. We have the low, higher low. Do we have a lower low? We do. Okay, so these two we're gonna get array. We have a low and we have a higher low. From these two top points, nice reversal patterns by the way, we are going to drag a line, template, trend line. See in here by the way as well, where this is your high, your low, higher high, your low, and then eventually a lower high. Indication, confirmation. Trend has been turning around. Lower high, lower low, lower high, higher low. Indication, confirmation. We are going up again. Higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. It's this simple. Okay, this is on the daily, and which means that if we are going to do the same again, where we have a indication here, eventually we create a lower low over here, lower high, bomb, big drop, very big lower low, lower high. Is this a lower low? No. Equal. Possibly indication that we might shift and go upwards again, because right now we failed to make a higher high in here. Okay, so so this in here is important to make that higher high. It failed to do it. It did touch it. It failed to do it, but eventually it had enough fuel to do it. Okay, and from here again a where it created that higher high, higher low, and then we have the indication again Simply, we create a lower high and a lower low. Lower high, lower low. Okay. Let's remove this. Where are we now? We have been closing the 1 day gap. Closed. We have these two bottoms. Drag the line. Not a neckline, because it's a trend line. The first gap that we have at the moment is this gap. Okay, on the daily. Template, 1 day gap. Second gap will be here. Third gap over there. So what we need to see now we kind of need to see a higher high in here. And it has been failing it. On the daily at least. Because on the hourly, we are uptrending. See how different it is sometimes? Like on the hourly, it says that we are making a lower high in here. But on the daily. So it's basically saying, yeah, we have two higher lows. And we have a higher high over here. And then a lower high. Which could be your indication again. Which means that this is important. Okay. But on the other hand, this is important. Because we need to make sure that we make a higher high over there. Okay. Because if we're going to check in, this is what we want. My bad, sorry. Let's remove this. This is what we want. But right now, we might be doing the other thing. We might be breaking down below in here, and I think I have to dive into the 1 hour here for this. High, higher high, higher high, low, higher low. Okay, what we have going on in here, we have a 1 hour gap. Come on, 1 hour gap. Which has been filled with a wick. But as you can see, it didn't make a higher high based on this situation. Meaning, it will go down. So this is a 1 hour gap. But I don't think it will be strong enough. Nice head and shoulder in here. Very nice head and shoulder. What's this? Oh yeah, I copied that. Eventually, these are the two lows that you have still open. So if we are going to close, like hourly speaking, we need to close below here. And if we don't do it, we might have the reversal up. Okay. Speaking on streams gets me so thirsty all the time. And just as Bitcoin, like we have seen a very nice inverse head and shoulder pattern here. Very nice over there. And eventually a very nice head and shoulder over here. Which means that in the middle between these two, we can spot a level on 18.05 level. The job, looking at the hourly, is still to do this something. Yeah, still to do this. However, is like this is our indication and this should be our confirmation. However, because we made that higher high on the hourly, it's not confirmed. Okay, so this is your first warning. We need a second warning, and because that second warning isn't there, this might continue up. Might. Hallo.
Hi.
Ben ik klaar.
Oké. Door school.
Ja. Okay. So AVAX has some potential, but risky. If it doesn't hold this, by the way, you might be looking over here. Because on the other hand, like, we want to see this being touched, okay? So. Do we have any trend lines over here, by the way? So it's starting to look a bit like a mess now, because we have been diving out and zooming in at the same time. But this is still what we need to be looking at. This high. And this. And if you were looking into this coin already, you have this high and this high, okay? So if we're going to drag those two to each other, yeah, nice touch point, we can see that the price has been touching it very nicely. And then yes, on the daily it's a bit more up, and then you can see that on the daily gap it had that nice reversal pattern. So this is filtering up and down at the same time. Now it's the time, are we going to get our exact view over here to bounce up and break the trend line. Okay. I am going to stop the stream. We know what we have to do. And we know what Bitcoin has to do now. Basically has to show us the way of, are we going to break the important lines, or are we going to continue up? That's our question. Yep. Till then, trade safe. Remember, in the middle on these two ranges, like right now we are in the middle, don't trade, because it could go both ways. Stay safe, trade safe, and enjoy the weekend.